We are 2 days away from Boston versus Toronto in the postseason, and today we're doing what's more likely, a Bruins win or a Leafs win.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Thursday, April 18th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available wherever you get podcasts, and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go. The mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. Join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. For those of you who may be new to the podcast, my name again is Ian McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan. I've been covering this team for various outlets for about 20 years now. I worked full-time for The Score as a hockey news editor and hosting this podcast for 5 years. And here we go again, another venture into Stanley Cup playoff hockey. Let's see if my cold dead heart is ready to be hurt once again, or will the Bruins fly to the highest of heights in what was expected to be a transition year? We will soon find out. Follow along on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. I took some time yesterday to clean this beautiful Bruins hat that I have, getting it all shined up and ready to wear out on the streets of Ontario, where I will no doubt be chirped mercilessly, especially if the Bruins lose, which we hope will not happen. And today we're playing what's more likely, a Bruins win or a Bruins loss. Let's start with the glass half full. The Bruins are going to win this series, and there's one major reason why, and it is at the opposite ends of the ice. Goaltending. All you have to do is look at team save percentage this season and see the massive advantage the Bruins have in this area. The Bruins ranked third among all NHL teams this season with a team save percentage of .915. The Maple Leafs are down behind the Arizona Coyotes, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Chicago Blackhawks, tied with the Chicago Blackhawks and the Calgary Flames with a save percentage of .898. Sub 900 save percentage for the Maple Leafs. League average is around 903, 904, so they're below league average when it comes to team goaltending. Now, a big part of that was because Joseph Woll was injured, but still, his overall numbers were not spectacular. 907 save percentage in 25 games. Ilya Samsonov, 40 appearances and .890 save percentage. The Bruins have a huge advantage, whether it's Linus Ullmark or Jeremy Swayman in net, or both at points. The Bruins will have the clear advantage, and it was Jeremy Swayman who had a couple starts this season against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he was excellent in those games. The Bruins will have the ability to roll out better options in net than the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's huge in the postseason. Now, yes, there are questions about whether or not they will go with Jeremy Swayman in game one. They'll go with Linus Ullmark in game one. Ullmark played better down the stretch. Swayman has played better against Toronto this season. Either way, they will have an advantage in net, and that's a huge reason why the Bruins will win. Team defense and goaltending. Goaltending is so important in the playoffs. We saw that last year Linus Ullmark came in as a Vezina Trophy soon-to-be winner. Faltered a bit in the playoffs. Sergei Bobrovsky, who is a very good goalie in his own right, stepped up after replacing Alex Lyon and played very, very well for the Panthers in the late games of that series and took it. And I think the Bruins will have learned a couple lessons from last season. You can't just pick one guy and count on him to turn things around as the season goes or as the series goes along if he begins to falter. You have a secondary option that is just as good as the other guy. So turn to him at the earliest possible sign of struggle or faltering. Turn to Swayman if you start Ullmark, turn to Ullmark if you start Swayman. That's just the way it needs to be. Use your strengths in net. Now, when it comes to goaltending 5-on-5, again, the Bruins, this is where the majority of the game is played. The Bruins rank third in save percentage in the NHL this season. At 5-on-5, the Maple Leafs ranked 23rd. If you go to all strengths, the Bruins, again, third in goaltending, and the Maple Leafs fall down to 24th. So it's a clear advantage, and that is why the Bruins will win. They have a better save percentage and a better goals for percentage as well. The Bruins in all strengths, they scored 263 goals. They allowed 221 for a goals for percentage of 54.34. The Maple Leafs were at 53.31. So here's the thing. The Leafs have the firepower to overtake the Bruins. The Bruins don't have, let's be honest, the most potent offense, but Boston's strength in net as well as Toronto's deficiencies in net should be enough to separate these two teams. And goaltending is the major reason why I believe the Boston Bruins will win this series. Goaltending, goaltending, goaltending. Boston's is elite. Toronto's is poor. And you can have Austin Matthews firing 100 shots per game. If Ilya Samsonov allows a weak one, that's incredibly deflating for the Maple Leafs, and it gives the Bruins that much more confidence. Just shoot the puck on net. One of the weaknesses of Boston's game this season was consistently allowing the opposition to get more shots on goal. But they did get more high danger chances than the opposition in all strengths this season. So they need to take the puck to the net, fire it at will, and chances are it's going to squeak by because Toronto's goaltending is not very good. And goaltending is the reason why the Boston Bruins will win this series. It's why they've succeeded all season long, and it will carry over here against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, we have to counter that with why the Toronto Maple Leafs will win the series. It's more likely that they will. And we'll discuss that here coming up after the break. We've all been there, eh? Either as a player or a fan. It's halftime. The scoreboard's not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you can pull it out. And that's when you dig deep, lift up your head, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress with your buddies. There's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks, charge other players rent for iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. While you're on YouTube, check out Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories from around the sports world, as well as can't miss analysis, opinions, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or Amazon Fire TV, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Speaking of your team every day, the plan over the next couple days is to get up a podcast with Locked On Leafs to preview the first round series. I also have a guest coming on tomorrow to focus mostly on the Bruins and their outlook heading into this playoff series. We talked about why the Bruins will win, goaltending. Let's talk about why it's more likely that the Toronto Maple Leafs will win. And a big reason for that is they just have more firepower than the Boston Bruins. And Boston is going to feel the loss of Patrice Bergeron in this series. It's one thing to have Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha playing very well in the regular season and putting up career highs in points while playing big defensive minutes. The playoffs are a completely different animal, and Austin Matthews came like this close to getting 70 goals this season. He had 12 shots in the season finale, could not get one past Matt Tompkins of all people, but he's going to be out there firing at will. And despite the fact the Bruins have such elite goaltending, he's so good that it doesn't matter who's in net. He can score on any given shift. And you combine that with William Nylander's fantastic season, Mitch Marner, the Bruins, their star player is David Pastrnak. And you can bet that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to do all they can to contain him. There's really not much else, let's be honest, beyond Brad Marchand, like a game breaker for the Boston Bruins. And even Marchand has, let's be honest, taken a bit of a step back this season. He's not quite the dominant winger that he once was. 29 goals, 38 assists for 67 points. Very respectable, but a huge drop-off between Pastrnak and Marchand. Like, we're talking 43 points here between these two players, and that's a big drop-off. You contain Pastrnak, you can contain Matthews, but then you have Nylander, Marner, who can go off as well. The Bruins weren't getting contributions from guys down the lineup later in the season as they were earlier. Jake DeBrusk, Trent Frederick went cold. James Van Riemsdyk has kind of disappeared. Morgan Geekie, Danton Heinen. Are these guys going to be able to step up? Or will the Maple Leafs finally be able to shed the moniker of chokers against the Bruins and pull away with the lead? Austin Matthews, just a fantastic season for them. And while it's not a lock to say that the Maple Leafs are going to win this series by any stretch, the fact that they have had those losses in the past, they were able to beat Tampa last season. This is another kind of ghost they have to overcome. Austin Matthews, their big four. The Bruins only have like a big one, and that's David Pastrnak. Their strengths are in net. Their two of their best players play the same position, which is a disadvantage to them. These guys have Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, all coming in basically between Pastrnak and Marchand as 1-2 on the Bruins. Factor in Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi, Matthew Nyes, who emerged. These guys are deeper than the Bruins offensively. Now, maybe you can hear my voice. I'm maybe trying to talk myself into this, but I really do think the Bruins can and will win this series. But at some point, it's going to go Toronto's way, and it's likely that it could be this year. The Bruins, again, no Patrice Bergeron, no David Krejci down the middle. Coyle and Zacha played very well during the regular season, but this is a completely different animal. And well, as I say that kind of assumes that the Maple Leafs guys will be able to raise their games, unlike in years past when they did not rise to the moment. But I think Austin Matthews is just too good, and it's going to be very hard for the Bruins to contain him, especially if they get into some penalty trouble. The penalty kill slipped a bit since January. Toronto's power play is incredibly potent. And if they can take advantage of that, they're ranked 7th on the power play. The Bruins did rank 13th. When it comes to more recently, the Maple Leafs since January 1st have succeeded on the power play at a success rate of 22.6%. The Bruins are 25th at 18.3%. That's going to be a huge factor in this series. You combine special teams with just the potency on offense that the Maple Leafs have, and it's perhaps more likely that Toronto will win this series than the Boston Bruins. What do you think? Let me know what you think is more likely, a Boston win or a Toronto win. At the end of the day, I do think it's more likely that the Maple Leafs will win. Scratch that. Rewind. I think it's more likely that the Bruins will win, but it's not guaranteed at all. It's probably going to go 7 games again. It's a bit of a coin flip. The Bruins have the goaltending advantage, massive advantage in net, but offensively, overall, the Leafs are much stronger. So it's going to come down to whether or not those guys can rise to the moment or whether Boston's goaltending remains solid, impenetrable, and they can bring home those 4 wins to advance to the second round of the playoffs. Coming up, I'm going to discuss my ideal Game 1 lineup, and we'll get to that here as the podcast continues. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. They give you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team, thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quote and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. As the Bruins got ready for practice here on Thursday, it looked like Justin Brazeau was on the ice. He's not expected to be ready for Game 1. He's still week to week, but perhaps that's a sign that he is nearing a return. So, what will the lineup look like for Game 1? We did not discuss the fact that Johnny Beecher was sent back down to Providence prior to the regular season finale, with Jason Megna getting a look kind of as a, hey, good job in the in the AHL this season, you can have a look on the NHL roster for a night here. It appears as though, according to Steve Conroy, Beecher is not back at practice. And the fourth line is currently James Van Riemsdyk, Jesper Boqvist, and Pat Maroon. That presumably would give a third line of Jacob Lauko, Morgan Geekie, Trent Frederick, with the top six being unchanged: Danton Heinen, Pavel Zacha, David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, and Jake DeBrusk. Is that the ideal lineup? I don't know. I really did like Beecher being up there. I liked his ability to chip in the faceoff circle. Matchups are so huge in the playoffs, and if you have a big defensive zone faceoff, like, who's taking that? It should have been Beecher as your best faceoff guy, but it looks as though it will be Jesper Boqvist, Morgan Geekie, Pavel Zacha, Charlie Coyle down the middle. That could be an advantage to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, good news is Brandon Carlo's back on the ice. So we have pairings of Hampus Lindholm, Charlie McAvoy, Matt Grzelcyk, Brandon Carlo, Kevin Shattenkirk, and Andrew Peeke are your third pairing, with Parker Wotherspoon presumably the odd man out. Now, that could be interchangeable. That seventh guy could come in and might have a trio there between Shattenkirk, Peeke, and Wotherspoon. But again, Lohrei down. Lohrei's down. Beecher's down. This is the roster that is set at the moment. And let me just check cap friendly. I'm not sure if they have an extra forward up at the moment, but yeah, 13th forward. I guess Brazo is technically the 13th forward. Not quite ready to go, but maybe sooner than later, because they don't have an extra forward up there at the moment. In terms of who should be the game one starter, because of how he played against Toronto this season, I would go with Jeremy Swayman. But again, no hesitation to put Linus Ullmark in there for game two. Or maybe you go home, road split, something like that. But I would like to see both of those guys get into the lineup at some point. Or get a start at some point, at the very least, to make use of that tandem. So that's what it looks like for the Boston Bruins. A fourth line of Van Riemsdyk, Boqvist, Maroon. Boqvist kind of playing with a couple, dare I say, anchors there, or guys who are a bit slower. And Jacob Lauko getting a look on the third line. I don't know. I would prefer to have Beecher up there over Lauko, I think, and maybe go Frederick, Geekie, Maroon with Beecher, Boqvist, and JVR, or JVR, Geekie, Frederick, Beecher, Boqvist, Maroon, something like that. Lauko, I don't want to see taking some bad penalties. I don't know. We're going to have to see here what becomes, but I would have liked to have Beecher in the lineup there, perhaps over Lauko or Van Riemsdyk for that matter. Anyways, tomorrow on the podcast, well, we're going to do, might have a double dip actually, hoping to record with the Leafs guys. Also hoping to have a Bruins writer on the show as well to tee up the series. It's going to be a fun, busy couple weeks here as the Bruins look to take out the Toronto Maple Leafs. What's more likely? Again, I think the Bruins are more likely to win because of overall team defense and goaltending. That's what wins championships. And I think they have the advantage. The Leafs just don't have the defensive depth. Their blue line, you're going to have Ilya Lyubushkin on a top pairing. I don't see it. I think the Bruins are going to take this, and I'm going to say in 6. That's my official prediction buried here at the end of this episode. All right, friends. Hope you're all having a great week. Please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you again here on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.